Hi class. So this week I'm doing a practice exercise on how to do homework 2. So last week you did homework 1 and you should have a workbook. Open that workbook. It should be labeled Social Work 595 Summer 20. And you should only have one sheet that says homework 1, and it should look something like this. This was actually my practice 1, but it should be your homework 1. So once you open up your workbook, what you'll do is you're going to create a new worksheet within that workbook. And that new worksheet should be labeled Codebook. So mine will be labeled Codebook Study Habits or Codebook SH. Because this is the practice. Yours may say something different. So whatever your instruction says to label it, use that label. So mine is Codebook SH. So I've already created mine. And before we get into what the codebook is, let me go back to my base client caseload. So you'll also have to create a worksheet called base client caseload. And if I remember correctly, you may have that from last week if you had to. No, you don't, because this was the first time we're using this base client caseload actually. So next you're going to create a new worksheet and you're going to label it base client caseload. Remember, to add a worksheet, you would select this plus sign over here, and you can double click on it and highlight it and then type in the name that you want to call it. So you'll label it base client caseload, and what you'll have to do is copy and paste your data set there, and it should look something like this. Again, it's going to have different information because this is just a practice, and you'll have to create one more worksheet, and this will be called homework 2. Mine says practice 2 because this is just a practice, but yours is going to be called homework 2. Again, in order for you to create a new worksheet, you would click the plus sign. It says new sheet. Click on that. And once you click on that, what you'll do is you double click on here and you rename it. So for example, if I just clicked on this, it took me there, sorry. So if I click on here, if I double click or right click, I can rename it. So I would rename it homework 2 or base client caseload, whatever you need to name it. All right. So basically, the base client caseload is your data set. You always want to have that as original data. You don't want to change that. So then you come to practice 2, and that's where you're going to make your changes. So first thing you want to do is create your code book based on your data set. So your data set has age, race, campus, and then your actual questionnaire that has 10 questions. So I would go to my code book and I would create that. So if you can see, here are the variables: age, race, campus, and study habits, which is the actual questionnaire. So my code book is basically a point of reference for me to go back and check and make sure I'm entering my data correctly, and to check for any errors. So as you can see, age, each student entered their exact age. For race, we're going to label that. And so because race is nominal level of measurement, it's words, and so we have to code it or give it numbers so that we are able to calculate statistics, right? So race is going to be 1 for Black, 2 for white, 3 Hispanic, and 4 Asian. So we're going to go over to homework 2, and we're going to recode that. So, all right, white was 2, Black was 1, Hispanic was 3, Asian was 4, Hispanic 3. Make sure you're putting in the right numbers. If not, your analysis is going to be incorrect. So white was 2, Black was 1, Asian 4, Hispanic 3. And I'm just labeling, or I'm just coding each of these. So black was 1, white was 2, and that was it. All right, so going back to my code book, and basically your code book, you create this. So you're gonna, this is how you're gonna do your own code book, right? Whatever your variables are, you list them out, and then you explain what they are and how they're labeled. So the other one is campus. This refers to the campus where students attend class. And then we're going to label Commerce a 1, Mesquite a 2, and McKinney a 3. So Commerce a 1, Mesquite 2, McKinney 3, Commerce 1, Mesquite 2, McKinney 3, Mesquite 2, Commerce 1, Mesquite 2, Mesquite 2, McKinney 3, Commerce is a 1, Mesquite 2. And we've changed our words into numbers. So we've coded those, all right? And going back to our code book, study habits, this is a scale that's measuring perceived study habits. The range for possible scores range from a 1, which is very bad, to a 5, which is very good. Lower scores represent lower levels of having very bad study habits, and then higher scores represents higher level of having very good study habits. So our code book is complete. All right. So once we've done that, and then I'm going to hit save because I don't want it to close out or my computer to go off or something to happen, and it didn't save that. I'm going back to homework 2. Now, your instructions should say basically that you need to compute data analysis that would allow you to describe your sample. And once you compute all your calculations, then you're going to write a narrative describing your sample. All right, so first thing we want to do here is we have 10 survey questions, which is these, and then we have a sum. So what we'll do is we have to add each. So these are the scores. For example, the first student's name is Adler, and this student is age 20. They are the white race. They attend the Commerce campus, and they scored a 2 on the first question, a 2 on the second, a 4 on the third question, a 1 on the fourth question. So these are all the scores that student had. So what we'll do is we're going to sum or calculate the total score for each student. So we can do that by saying equals sum, and then we double click and highlight survey questions 1 all the way to survey question 10 and hit enter. Okay, and we're going to do that one more time. Equals sum, double click on the sum, and then highlight survey questions 1 all the way to survey questions 10. Make sure you're only including survey questions 1 to 10. Make sure you're not adding race or campus in that. Okay. All right. And then what we can do, instead of calculating that for each student, we can just copy the formula. So if we put our mouse to the corner and get the little black plus sign, we can just drag our formula down to the very last student, and it should calculate the total score. All right, seems that I missed coding on this one. This student was black, so they get a 1. All right, so now that we have our total score, we can start calculating our descriptives. So now that we have our total score for each student, we can calculate our descriptive to describe our sample. All right, so here's where your level of measurement comes in. Depending on your level of measurement, you can calculate certain statistics. So if you have racial level data, you can calculate a mean. If you have a nominal level data, then you can only calculate a mode. So for age, we can calculate a mean. Let's see, we can do that right here. I'll just add some more columns. So to add a column, you can highlight it. And when you click on it, hit insert, it'll just add a different column. All right, so I'm gonna say mean. We can calculate the mean age. So remember, the mean is the same as an average. So in order to calculate the mean age, all we have to do is say equals average, and then we would highlight age. So we're gonna highlight all the ages for all the students. Hit enter. And our or mean age is 37. Okay. Now for race and campus, those are nominal level data, so we can't calculate a mean. What we can calculate though is a mode, and a mode is basically the most frequent response. So we can do mode for race, and we can do mode campus. All right, same thing. We can do functions using a formula equals mode so we can use the functions to do to calculate the mode equals mode. Double click on that, and we're doing mode for race. Hit enter. And the mode for race is 1, so that means that most of the students were black. There's another way that we can calculate the mode using the function. So you go up here to formula, go to more functions, statistical, and we should be able to find the mode here. Okay, I guess this one is, yes, so we need the single mode because we should only have one, we may only have one mode. So you double click on that, and then basically you have to highlight the data set. So this one involves a little bit more than just doing it the other way, right? And so we're doing campus, so we would highlight this and hit enter. And our mode is also 1, which is commerce. So in describing our sample, our mean age of participants was 37. Most of the student participants were black and attended the campus and attended the commerce campus. All right. So now that we've calculated that the long way, I'm going to show you how you can calculate that a shorter way. All right, so again, I'm going to make more space by highlighting that, clicking it, and hitting insert so that I can have more space in between. I want to be able to have enough room to do my other calculations. All right, so the next thing I'm going to show you is how to use the data analysis Toolpak to calculate descriptives. So you would have to go to File, Options, Add-ins, Then you want to select Analysis Toolpak and come down to the bottom where it says Excel add-ins. Make sure that's selected and select Go. When you come here, it should, you have to select the Analysis Toolpak. So once that's selected, hit OK. And then go to Data. And here's your data analysis. So go to Data, then select Data Analysis and Descriptive Statistics, and OK. So then this little box is going to come up and you're going to put in the input range. So the input range is basically the data that you want calculated. So we're going to do descriptive statistics on age, race, and campus. Okay, so we're going to select all three of those all the way for each student. Then we're going to make sure labels in first row is selected, okay, because we want the labels included. And then the next step is to select the output range. So once you select the output range, click in the output range box and select an empty cell where you want the information to be. So I'm going to say I want it here. And then what you'll do is make sure Summary Statistics is selected. And then OK. Okay, so it's giving me an error because I don't have enough space in between some other data. So I'm going to go back and make more space. Okay. So I'm going to cancel all of those and I'm going to make more room because I have some other stuff in here that I'm going to show you guys how to do. And so I'm going to have to make more room. Again, just if you wanted to include more columns or make more space, you would highlight the entire column and hit insert. Okay, let's see, hopefully this should be enough space. All right, so we're gonna do that again. We're gonna go to Data, Data Analysis, Descriptive Statistics, okay. And our data should already be highlighted because we just did that, but just to double check, the data we want included is age, race, and campus. And then we select all of those. And make sure labels in first row is selected. Go to your output range, select that box, and just click where you want it to go. I'm just gonna put it here and see if that works this time. Then hit OK. Uh-oh, it's still too close. Okay. Okay. So let's see. I'm gonna select a different place to put it. I'm gonna come down here below. Oh, I see why, because this was down here and I never moved this. Okay, that makes sense. I'm gonna come down here. I'm gonna put it down here. All right, and I hit OK, and there you go. So we have age, race, and campus. We have, this is what we call descriptive statistics. So you have the mean 37. We calculated that and using formulas and functions, and it gave us the same thing. You'll notice that whenever you calculate descriptive statistics using the data analysis Toolpak, it will still, it may still calculate mean and stuff like that, like mean and median, mode, and all of that. However, just because it calculated it here does not mean that you would use that. For example, you can't have a mean race, right? You can't have an average race. You can't have an average campus. So what you'll have to do for that is mode. So you have your mean. Let's make these a little bit wider so you can read it. Okay, so you have your mean, you have your standard error, you have your median, which is the middle point, your mode, and standard deviation, which tells you how far apart your scores fall from the mean. Your sample variation. Another important thing is your range, your minimum or your maximum. So what's the lowest versus the highest score? And then your count, which is your actual sample size. Okay, so it should always be 24 in this case because we only have 24 students. All right, so now that we did that, I'm also going to do the same thing for your questionnaire. Okay, so we're going to calculate the data analysis, or using the data analysis Toolpak to do descriptives on your survey. So we're going to do data analysis, descriptive statistics, hit OK, and our range is going to be from question 1 all the way to the summary, or total scores, because we want all of those. All right, and then labels in first row is also checked. The output range, we want it down here, and hit OK. And there you go. So this one's a much bigger one. This again gives you the same data on your questionnaire. So it provides the mean, it provides the mode, it provides all of that that describes your questionnaire, how people responded for each one. Okay. Now the next thing that I want you to do, once you calculate that, I also need you to calculate percentages and frequencies. So the thing is, in order to be able to tell what percentage was black, what percentage was white, or what percentage went to Commerce versus what percentage went to Mesquite, you have that's not calculated in the descriptive statistics that you just did. So you have to manually, or you have to do that separately. All right. So we're going to do that over here. And so we're going to do it on race first. And in order to highlight like these, what you can do is you just highlight that. You go to home and you go to your little fill color here and just select whatever color you wanted. And that's how you get a highlight there. Okay, so in order to calculate frequencies and percentages, you can use the functions for frequency. I'm going to tell you right now, we had so many issues doing the functions. So I'm just not going to do it that way because it doesn't always work. Students have a hard time with it. I can't explain what goes on in Excel when it comes to the frequency function. And so I'm just not going to do it that way. Okay. If you wanted to try it that way and see if it works, you're welcome to do that. All you would have to do is go to formulas. You would do more functions, statistical, and then you would find frequency, which is right here. And when you do that, you put in the, you highlight the data you wanted to actually include, and then you'd have to select Shift, Alt, and Enter all at the same time. For some reason, it doesn't really work well, and sometimes it picks up information that shouldn't be in the frequency. And so the last time I taught this class, we did run into a lot of problems, and it didn't really work. Most of the times it didn't work. It didn't work for everyone, and so it was a lot of confusion. So I just don't want you to have to be frustrated and confused by that. So I'm just going to show you another way that really works. Okay, so we're going to calculate frequencies for race. Well, in order to calculate frequencies, we have to have bins. So bins, what bins are basically the ranges. If you have a range of numbers, for example, let's say you had from 0 to 5, and then you had from 6 to 10, and then you had from 7 to 15, your bins would be the ending number. So it basically means the end point. So it would be 5, 10, and 15. Now for race, since we only have 4 races and you could only be 1, 2, 3, or 4, those would be your bins. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 would be your bins. And that would basically mean that this is Black, white, Hispanic, and Asian. All right. So what we'll do is we would calculate our frequency. And I'll do it over here because I don't think we'll have enough space. So again, we'll use our data analysis. So we'll do data analysis, and then we're going to calculate a histogram. And okay, so then you get this little box, and you'll have to put in your input range. My input range is going to be, we're doing race, so we have to go over here to our data set, and then we're going to highlight race. Our bin is going to be those numbers we just did, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And make sure it included the label. Okay. Our output range, let's see, let's just put it right beside it on this side. We want it to, we can include the chart if we wanted to, but we really don't need that, so I'm not going to select that. Whenever you're creating a histogram, you would actually select chart output. But since we're only creating a histogram because we want the frequency, I'm not going to select the chart output, and I hit OK. And here's the frequency. So 1 was a 7, 2 was a 5, and then we had 6 3s and 6 4s. All right. So the next step would be to create or to do a percentage, right? And in order to do your percentage, it's basically each one divided by the total amount. So we'll have to do a sum first, equals sum of these frequencies, which should be 24. Remember, you only have 24 students. And then so to calculate the percentage, we would do equals 7 divided by 24. And in order for us to copy that, we have to put a $sign, but I'll show you that for the next one. I'll calculate all of this individually, and then I'll show you a way for you to be able to copy that formula. All right, we'll change that in a minute. So equals 5 divided by 24 equals 6 divided by 24. And then the last one equals 6 divided by 24. All right, if you can see, this is showing like decimal points, and what we'll have to do is change this to percentage. So we can highlight it here, and we can go up to home and select the percentage sign right here, and then it changes to percentage. Okay. Okay. So in order to copy that, we have to enter a $sign. So I'll show you that when we do campus. So in order to do campus, again, we have the same thing. We have commerce, we have Mesquite, and then we have McKinney. So again, we only had 3 campuses. So our bins, you could only be 1, which is commerce, 2, or 3. Okay. So in order to calculate our frequency, We can do data, data analysis, histogram should already be selected, and okay. Our data or input range is going to be campus, so we highlight campus all the way down. And then our bin range is going to be this 1, 2, 3, and our output range, we're going to do it right here and hit OK. And so the way I have it labeled, I already had this set up here, but what you can do before you do this, you can just go ahead and calculate, you can actually just run your frequency. So do your histogram and run your frequency. And then what you can do is just do, you can just add this other information here instead of having to move it over here. But either way, it's fine. So what you can do is you can say this one was campus, frequency already there. So we can just calculate the percentage. And then we can just highlight that. We can just put here campus, so we know that's the one we're doing. And so remember, the first thing is equals sum. We have to calculate the sum, which is actually should be 24, which it is, and then calculate the percentage. So remember, the percentage is equals 8, which is the first number, divided by the total number of students, right? But if you wanted to copy your formula, you have to include a $sign for this. So the $sign goes before the column, which is before the V here, and then it goes after the column as well, or before the row, which was 14. Okay, so again, just remember that the $sign goes before and after the letter. The letter is actually the column. See the letters up here? All right, so always remember that the $sign is always going to go before and after the letter. All right, so once we hit enter, we get 33%. Now we should be able to copy that. So if we get the little plus sign and we come all the way down here, it copied that. All right, again, it's not in percentage format, so we have to make it percentage format. So go back up here to home, and the percentage sign, select that, and it changes to percentage. So see, you can do it that way instead of having it separate like that. That way you have your frequency, you just have to add your percentage column. Okay, so the same way you do that, you will do the same thing for your survey questions. So you will calculate that for each survey question. Okay, and here let me show you the difference. Your survey questions are only going to be 1 through 5. So your bins are only going to be 1 through 5. But your total score, which is the sum of all your survey questions, that's going to be a range. Okay, and I'm going to come back to that. Let's go to calculate one of your actual survey questions. So here's survey question 1. Here's your bins, and we're going to calculate the frequency. So going back to data analysis, histogram, hit OK. We are looking here for survey question 1. And that's for all students. Then your bins are going to be through 5. Your output range, let's go ahead and put it, let's just go ahead and put it on the side of this. Okay, and hit OK. So Here's your bins, here's your frequency, and this is for survey question 1. So now we're going to do percentage. All right, so again, first thing we want to do is sum them up. Equals sum. Highlight this. Enter, and we get a 24. And then we're going to do percentage. Equals frequency 1 divided by the total amount. We're going to put a plus sign before the A or the AL, and then a plus sign after. I'm sorry, we're going to do a dollar sign before the AL and a dollar sign after the AL, and hit enter. Then we can just copy that formula and then go up here to percentage and select percentage. And there you go, you have the percentage. So what you can do is, looking at this, you can tell that 13% of participants, or 13% of participants felt very bad or had very bad study skills based on that one question, or whatever that one question was asking. So 13% responded with a 1. But again, you wouldn't say they responded with a 1. You would say whatever the 1 meant. So 1, I think, was very bad, and 5 was very good. So whatever the question was, you would say 13% thought they were very bad at studying this way, or whatever the question is. Okay. I guess let me pull the question up so I can. Here it is. Okay, so pulling the questions up here, study question or study habit question 1 said daydreaming interferes with my studying. So 13% of the participants strongly disagreed that daydreaming interfered with their studying. 29% neither agreed or disagreed that daydreaming interfered with their studying. 25% agreed that daydreaming interferes with their studying. And then, so basically 13% strongly disagreed. So the same amount of students disagreed or strongly disagreed, and the same amount strongly disagreed. I'm sorry, I'm babbling here. All right, let's do this again. So 13% strongly disagreed, and 13% strongly agreed that daydreaming interferes with their studying. When describing your sample, you don't have to include all of these. What you would usually report is like the majority or the least or something like that. So here, what's interesting for this particular question is that 29% neither agreed or disagreed that study habits or daydreaming interfered with their studying. The same amount of students either strongly disagreed or strongly agreed that it does interfere with their studying habits. So that's kind of how you would talk about each one of those individual questions. All right. So now let's calculate their overall study habits. So again, you would do that for each survey question. Survey question 2, survey question 3, all the way to 10. I'm not going to do that because the video is just going to be way too long. So next one, we're going to calculate the total scores. So again, remember how to create your bins. Your bins is actually the ending number. So 10 to 18, you would do 18. 19 to 26, you would do 26. 27 to 34, you would do 34. Here it would be 42. And then 50. So those are your bins. All right. So we're going to do data analysis, histogram, and OK. So our input range is going to be our sum of our study habits, which is the total score. bin is gonna be okay. I'm trying to see. Okay, here it is. These are our bins. And then our output range. Let's go ahead and do it right here and hit OK. So as you can see, this is our frequency. I'm just gonna copy it over. Again, you can do it an easier way since I had already had these pre-done. So that's why I'm doing it this way. But for you, I would go ahead and just do percentages right beside this. Okay. So let's do equals sum of this, which should be 24. And then we can do the percentage. Equals 0 divided by 24. We already know what that's going to be. Equals this. The second one divided by 24, which is that. Equals 15 divided by 24, which is the total amount. And again, if we wanted to just be able to copy our formula, we would have to put in our $ here before the letter and after the letter, and then hit enter, and then we can just copy our formula for the rest. And what we would have to do is go ahead and select percentage. So go to home, select percentage there, and it gives you percentage. Okay, so again, in order to do your frequencies, I would just go ahead and calculate my histogram and just add the percentage. Okay, so that way you would only have this small table rather than having this table and adding more things. Okay, so you would do it the same way, whichever is easier. The only reason I had this like this was because I wanted to have as much work pre-done before starting the recording. That way the video is not like an hour long or more. All right, so now that we've calculated everything, what we can see here, our total score, if I pull up our survey again, okay, the total points, so 10 to 18 was very bad. So this one was very bad. This was bad. This was neither good or bad. This was good. And this was very good. All right, so looking at that, we can say that the majority of the students, 63%, perceive their study habits as neutral or neither bad or good. 13% of the students perceive their study habits as good, and 25% perceive their study habits as bad. Do you see how that describes how the students perceive their study habits? So that's how you're going to write up your descriptives in the narrative. And so this should be everything you need to calculate to describe your sample. So I would calculate my descriptive statistics by using the data analysis Toolpak and calculate descriptive statistics. That will give you every piece of information that you need. It gives you the mean, it gives you standard deviation. So basically it covers all the measures of central tendency. Once you do that, then you go back and you calculate the percentage and frequencies for all your variables. So again, you can use that to describe your sample. Okay? Hopefully, again, this wasn't too confusing. I tried to keep it in order. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing. but it was step by step on how to calculate several things and everything you need to calculate for homework 2.